How happy are you to continue your relationship with NBC?
I'm thrilled. I mean, it's been my home for going on 20 years now.
Just moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment.
I changed emotionally. Fear crept into my life. I became unsure of myself. Any confidence I had was gone. For him, it was a conquest.
Once America's most trusted morning host, earning $25 million a year as the king of breakfast television.
Well, I'm coming forward, number one, because I've carried this for 17 years, and I've carried it almost exclusively on my own.
Now at 67, he's a pariah living in exile, his empire reduced to ashes by allegations that destroyed everything he'd built.
And it took me a long time to process what was going on, because the side of Matt I knew was the side of Matt I think you all knew. He was kind and generous.
This is the devastating fall of a man who went from America's breakfast table to persona non grata overnight. In the mid-1990s, Matt Lauer was the embodiment of the American dream in television journalism. Rising from humble beginnings as a production assistant at a West Virginia television station, he had clawed his way to the pinnacle of morning television through sheer determination, undeniable charisma, and an almost supernatural ability to connect with viewers across the country.
You know, it was always my dream job from the early days of my career. Being some part of the Today Show was what I always wanted to do. So now I have the job, and I can't imagine giving it up. I still love it.
When NBC promoted him from newsreader to co-host of Today in 1997, Lauer didn't just inherit a job. He inherited a television institution that had been America's morning ritual for decades. But what he did with that inheritance would make him one of the most recognizable faces in the country, and eventually one of the highest paid personalities in television history. Lauer's rise was meteoric and seemingly unstoppable. His everyman charm combined with sharp journalistic instincts made him the perfect morning television host for the new millennium. He could seamlessly transition from interviewing world leaders about geopolitical crises to cooking segments with celebrity chefs, from breaking news coverage to lighthearted banter with his co-hosts. This versatility became his trademark and his ticket to television immortality. The numbers told the story of his dominance. Under Lauer's co-hosting, Today consistently dominated the morning television ratings, often crushing competitors like Good Morning America and CBS This Morning by margins that seemed insurmountable. Advertisers flocked to the show, knowing that Lauer's presence guaranteed massive audiences and, more importantly, the kind of viewer loyalty that translated directly into consumer behavior. By the early 2000s, Lauer had become more than just a television host. He was a cultural institution. His annual salary negotiations became front-page news, with each contract renewal setting new records for morning television compensation. His 2012 contract extension reportedly made him the highest-paid news personality in television history, with an annual salary of $25 million that reflected not just his ratings dominance, but his irreplaceable value to NBC's entire morning programming strategy. The financial success allowed Lauer to live a lifestyle that reflected his status as television royalty. He owned multiple properties, including a stunning estate in the Hamptons, a luxury apartment in Manhattan, and eventually a massive ranch in New Zealand. His personal life seemed equally charmed. Married to former model Annette Rock since 1998, father to 3 children, and possessing the kind of public image that made him a sought-after guest at the most exclusive social events in New York and beyond. But perhaps most remarkably, Lauer managed to maintain his down-to-earth persona despite his astronomical success. Viewers saw him as the trusted friend who helped them start each day, the reliable presence who could deliver both serious news and moments of levity with equal skill. This connection with the audience was genuine, built over decades of consistency and professionalism that made him seem like family to millions of Americans. His interviewing skills became legendary within the industry. Lauer could coax revelations from reluctant subjects, hold powerful figures accountable, and navigate the most sensitive topics with a combination of journalistic rigor and human empathy. From grilling politicians about scandals to comforting celebrities through personal crises, he demonstrated a range that few television personalities could match. The Today Show under Lauer's leadership became more than just a morning news program. It was a cultural touchstone that helped define how Americans experienced current events, entertainment, and even their own daily routines. His influence extended far beyond the television screen, shaping conversations at water coolers, influencing public opinion, and creating the template for modern morning television that competitors would spend years trying to replicate. While Matt Lauer's public image remained pristine throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, behind the scenes at NBC, a different story was quietly unfolding. Whispers, rumors, and uncomfortable incidents were accumulating like storm clouds on the horizon, creating a pattern that, in hindsight, painted a disturbing picture of power dynamics and inappropriate behavior that the network either couldn't see or chose to ignore. The warning signs weren't subtle if you knew where to look. Industry insiders began noticing Lauer's tendency to form close relationships with younger female staffers, particularly those in junior positions who were starstruck by his celebrity and influence. These relationships often began as professional mentoring, but frequently crossed boundaries that made colleagues uncomfortable, even if they couldn't quite articulate why.
And he just said, wow, you look great. I don't remember verbatim, but it was like, whatever you're doing with yourself or in your life, it's certainly agreeing with you. Just wanted to let you know. And that was from him. And I thought, well, that's nice.
The pattern was always similar. Lauer would single out promising young women for special attention, offering career advice, exclusive access, and the intoxicating promise of advancement in the cutthroat world of television news. For many of these women, being noticed by the most powerful figure at NBC News felt like winning the lottery until they realized the true cost of his attention. Former colleagues later recalled instances where Lauer's behavior made them uncomfortable. But the culture at NBC, like many media organizations, made it difficult to speak up. He was untouchable, generating hundreds of millions in revenue for the network, maintaining sky-high ratings, and wielding the kind of influence that could make or break careers. Who would believe accusations against someone so beloved by the public and so valuable to the company? The isolation of his victims was perhaps the most insidious aspect of his alleged pattern of behavior. Young women who found themselves the object of his attention often felt they had nowhere to turn. Speaking up could mean suicide, while staying silent meant enduring treatment that left them confused, ashamed, and psychologically damaged. NBC executives, when later pressed about their knowledge of Lauer's behavior, consistently maintained they were unaware of any problems until the formal complaint that led to his firing in 2017. But this claim became increasingly difficult to believe as more details emerged about the toxic workplace culture that had allegedly existed for years at the highest levels of the network. The 2008 New York Friars Club roast of Lauer became particularly telling in retrospect. What seemed like good-natured ribbing at the time included multiple jokes about his reputation for having relationships with staff members. The fact that his alleged predatory behavior had become such common knowledge that it was considered appropriate material for public jokes suggests a systemic failure of oversight and accountability. The power imbalance was crushing for his alleged victims. Lauer wasn't just a celebrity. He was the undisputed king of morning television, with the ability to influence careers throughout the industry. Young women who caught his attention found themselves trapped between their professional ambitions and their personal boundaries, often with devastating psychological consequences. Many of these women later described feeling complicit in their own abuse, a common response among victims of workplace sexual harassment. They questioned their own judgment, wondered if they had somehow invited the attention, and struggled with feelings of shame and self-blame that would haunt them for years or even decades. The culture of celebrity worship that surrounded Lauer made it even more difficult for victims to process their experiences or seek help. How do you complain about someone the whole country loves? How do you reconcile the charming public persona with the private behavior that left you feeling violated and powerless? The psychological toll on his alleged victims was severe and long-lasting. Some left the television industry entirely, their dreams crushed by experiences that left them unable to trust their own judgment or believe in their professional worth. Others stayed but struggled with anxiety, depression, and a constant fear that their experiences would somehow become public knowledge. Meanwhile, Lauer continued to present himself as the perfect family man, the consummate professional, and the trusted voice that millions of Americans welcomed into their homes each morning. The disconnect between his public image and his alleged private behavior created a cognitive dissonance that would eventually contribute to the explosive nature of his downfall. November 29, 2017, started like any other Wednesday morning in the Today Show studio. Matt Lauer arrived early, as was his custom, preparing for another day of interviews, news segments, and the casual banter that had made him America's most trusted morning host for 2 decades. He had no idea that before the sun set, his career, his reputation, and his entire life would be obliterated in a matter of hours. The complaint that would end everything came from Brooke Nevels, a former NBC News producer who had worked closely with Meredith Vieira. After years of carrying the secret of what she alleged happened between her and Lauer, particularly during the 2014 Sochi Olympics, Nevels finally found the courage to speak to NBC's Human Resources Department about her experiences. What happened next moved with the speed of a corporate avalanche. Within hours of receiving Nevels' detailed complaint, NBC executives found themselves facing a nightmare scenario. Their most valuable asset, the man who had been the face of their network for over 2 decades, was being accused of behavior so serious that it threatened not just his career, but the entire reputation of the network. The decision to fire Lauer was made with unprecedented swiftness, reflecting both the seriousness of the allegations and NBC's desperate attempt to get ahead of what they suspected would become a much larger scandal. Andrew Lack, chairman of NBC News, made the call personally, ending Lauer's career with a phone call that lasted less than 5 minutes. The public announcement came during the Today Show itself, creating one of the most surreal moments in television history. Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb, Lauer's longtime colleagues and friends, had to break the news to viewers who were expecting their usual morning routine. The shock and pain on their faces was genuine. They were learning about the allegations in real time, just like the rest of America.
Just moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment.
The speed of the firing sent shockwaves through the television industry. No investigation, no due process, no attempt to give Lauer a chance to defend himself. Just immediate termination, in a statement that made it clear NBC believed the allegations were credible enough to end a career worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the network. For viewers who had welcomed Lauer into their homes every morning for 20 years, the news was devastating and confusing. How could someone they trusted so completely have allegedly been living such a double life? The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming for many fans who struggled to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the allegations being made against him. The immediate aftermath was brutal for everyone involved. NBC's stock price fluctuated as investors worried about the impact on the network's most profitable show. Today Show staff found themselves in an impossible position, having to continue producing television while processing the shocking revelations about their colleague and friend. For Lauer himself, the fall from grace was instantaneous and complete. Within hours, he went from being one of the most powerful figures in television to a pariah whose very name became toxic. The man who had interviewed presidents and celebrities, who had been trusted with breaking major news stories, was now the story himself, and not in any way he could have imagined. His initial response was a brief statement expressing sorrow for the pain he had caused, and acknowledging some unspecified misconduct while disputing some of the facts. But the statement felt inadequate given the magnitude of the allegations, and it did nothing to stem the tide of additional accusations that would soon follow. The firing also highlighted the broader Me Too movement that was reshaping American culture in 2017. Lauer's downfall came just months after Harvey Weinstein's fall from grace, and it served as proof that no one was too powerful or too beloved to escape accountability for alleged sexual misconduct. For NBC, the decision to fire Lauer so quickly was both a moral necessity and a calculated business decision. They knew that more allegations were likely to surface, and they wanted to position themselves as taking decisive action, rather than defending someone whose behavior had become indefensible. The 20-year relationship between Lauer and NBC ended not with ceremony or gratitude, but with a terse statement and the immediate removal of all traces of his presence from the network's offices and promotional materials. It was a corporate execution carried out with clinical efficiency. The hours and days following Matt Lauer's firing unleashed a cascade of personal and professional destruction that seemed to accelerate with each passing moment. What began as a single complaint quickly morphed into a media feeding frenzy that would expose the full extent of his alleged misconduct and destroy virtually every aspect of the life he had spent decades building. Within 48 hours of his termination, additional women began coming forward with their own stories of alleged and inappropriate behavior. The pattern that emerged painted a picture of a man who had allegedly used his position of power systematically and repeatedly to exploit young women throughout his career at NBC. The most devastating blow came in 2019 with the publication of Ronan Farrow's book Catch and Kill, which included Brooke Neville's detailed account of what she alleged raped during the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Neville's claimed that Lauer had anally his hotel room after a night of drinking, leaving her bleeding and traumatized. Lauer's response to these allegations was swift and vehement. In a 1,400-word open letter released through his attorney, he categorically denied the and characterized his relationship with Neville's as completely consensual. But his defense backfired spectacularly, with many observers noting that his detailed description of their seemed inappropriate and potentially re-traumatizing to his accuser. The personal toll was immediate and devastating. His wife, Annette Roque, who had previously filed for divorce in 2006 before reconciling, finally ended their marriage permanently. The divorce proceedings revealed the extent to which his alleged behavior had poisoned their relationship years before the public scandal erupted. Roque's divorce filing included allegations of mental abuse, extreme mental and emotional distress, humiliation, torment, and anxiety. The settlement reportedly cost Lauer $20 million, plus additional millions in property transfers, representing one of the most expensive celebrity divorces in recent memory. The financial devastation extended far beyond the divorce settlement. NBC had terminated his contract for cause, meaning he forfeited the remainder of his $25 million annual salary that was scheduled to run through 2018. Endorsement deals evaporated overnight. Speaking opportunities disappeared. The media empire he had built over 2 decades was reduced to nothing in a matter of weeks. His children, Jack, Romy, and Tiz, found themselves thrust into an impossible situation. Their father, who had been a public figure their entire lives, was now a source of shame and embarrassment. The family name that had once opened doors was now a liability that would follow them for the rest of their lives. The social isolation was perhaps even more brutal than the financial losses. Friends who had known Lauer for decades found themselves having to choose between loyalty and their own reputations. Many chose to distance themselves completely, leaving him to face the consequences of his alleged actions largely alone. The media coverage was relentless and unforgiving. Every aspect of his life was scrutinized and re-examined through the lens of the allegations. Old interviews were dissected for signs of inappropriate behavior. Former colleagues were asked to comment on his character and their knowledge of his alleged misconduct. The psychological impact on Lauer was reportedly severe. Sources close to him described a man in complete shock, unable to process how quickly his entire world had collapsed. The man who had been accustomed to being one of the most powerful figures in media was now powerless to control his own narrative or defend his reputation effectively. For his alleged victims, the public revelation of their stories was both validating and traumatic. While many felt vindicated that their experiences were finally being acknowledged, they also found themselves thrust into a media spotlight they never wanted, forced to relive their trauma in the most public way possible. The broader implications for NBC were also significant. The network faced intense scrutiny about what executives knew and when they knew it. Questions were raised about whether the company had enabled Lauer's alleged behavior by failing to investigate earlier complaints or by creating a culture where such behavior could flourish unchecked. The scandal also highlighted the broader power dynamics in the television industry, where star anchors wield enormous influence over the careers of their colleagues. The case became a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the importance of creating safe workplace environments where employees can report misconduct without fear of retaliation. At 67, Matt Lauer exists in a kind of purgatory that would have been unimaginable during his decades as America's most trusted morning host. The man who once commanded $25 million a year and influenced the daily conversations of millions of Americans now lives in virtual exile. His days spent largely in isolation at his remaining properties, trying to rebuild some semblance of a life from the ruins of his former empire. The physical transformation alone tells a story of his fall. Recent photographs show a man who bears little resemblance to the polished, confident anchor who dominated morning television for 2 decades. Gone is the crisp professional appearance, replaced by a more casual, almost disheveled look that suggests someone who no longer has any reason to maintain the image that once defined him. His primary residence is now his estate in the Hamptons, a property that represents both his past success and his current isolation. The sprawling compound, once a symbol of his triumph over humble beginnings, has become a kind of gilded prison where he spends most of his time away from the public eye that once adored him. The irony is profound. The horse farm he once discussed with such enthusiasm as a family retreat has become a lonely refuge where he contemplates the wreckage of his career and reputation. The dreams he shared about spending time with his wife and children pursuing their equestrian interests were shattered along with everything else when the allegations surfaced. His relationship with his children remains perhaps the most painful aspect of his current existence. While sources suggest he maintains contact with Jack, Romy, and Thais, the easy intimacy of their previous relationship has been forever altered by the public nature of his disgrace. The man who once took pride in being a devoted father now struggles with the knowledge that his actions have cast a shadow over their lives that may never fully lift. The one bright spot in his personal life appears to be his relationship with Shameen Abbas, a luxury marketing executive who has stood by him through the worst of the scandal. Their relationship, which began in 2019 after his divorce was finalized, represents a rare source of stability in his otherwise chaotic existence. Abbas, who runs her own successful marketing firm, working with ultra-luxury brands like Rolls-Royce and Ferrari, brings her own financial independence and professional accomplishments to the relationship. Unlike Lauer's previous relationships that were scrutinized by the media, their romance has been deliberately kept low profile, with only occasional public appearances at carefully selected events. The financial picture, while not dire, is a far cry from his previous wealth. The divorce settlement with Annette Roque reportedly cost him at least $20 million, and the loss of his NBC salary eliminated his primary source of income. While his estimated net worth of $80 million provides financial security, it's a fraction of what it might have been if his career had continued its upward trajectory. His daily routine now bears no resemblance to the carefully choreographed schedule that once governed his life as a television host. There are no 4 a.m. wake-up calls, no meetings with producers, no interviews with world leaders or celebrities. Instead, his days are filled with the mundane activities of a retiree, albeit one whose retirement was forced upon him by scandal rather than chosen as a natural progression. The psychological toll of his isolation cannot be overstated. Sources close to him describe a man who struggles with depression and anxiety, who has had to come to terms with the fact that the career that defined him for decades is over forever. The man who once prided himself on being at the center of American cultural conversations now finds himself completely cut off from that world. Perhaps most telling is his apparent lack of any concrete plans for the future. While there have been occasional rumors about a possible return to television or other media ventures, these seem more like wishful thinking than realistic possibilities. The television industry has made it clear that there is no path back for someone with his baggage. The few public appearances he makes with a boss are carefully managed affairs, usually at events where he's unlikely to face hostile media attention. Even these rare outings seem to exhaust him, as if the effort of presenting a normal facade in public requires enormous emotional energy. Recent reports suggest he has been quietly reaching out to former colleagues, perhaps testing the waters for some kind of professional rehabilitation, but the responses have reportedly been lukewarm at best, with many of his former friends and colleagues still unwilling to risk their own reputations by associating with him publicly. The man who once seemed invincible now faces the reality that his legacy will forever be defined not by his professional achievements, but by the allegations that ended his career. At 67, with his best years behind him and his reputation in ruins, Matt Lauer serves as a cautionary tale about the price of unchecked power and the devastating consequences when that power is allegedly abused. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.